So welcome guys to another video that discusses current issues or thoughts on current trends and conversations ranging from geopolitics, business, corporate, you name it. My name is Dr. Chege, and in this video I just want to give my own academic view of why I feel, and this is a personal view, that the vice president's fight on illicit alcohol is actually a losing war. He has been a champion of fighting the vice, as it were. During his various public appearances, he has said that even though the people that are enforcing his promise to the people are sabotaging him in one way or the other, the steam will not be lost. They will still keep fighting. Now, I say this with all respect. I don't mean to say that his strategy is wrong, but I would like to bring on board a more holistic view to the problem of illicit alcohol. And we say that from the top, if you're trying to solve any problem, regardless whether it's poverty, whether it's a health crisis, whether it's inflation, the accuracy of your strategy will depend on how well you created the model, and this model is what defines the problem. In other words, for example, we say inflation. What is inflation? What is our model of inflation? It is being caused by maybe war in Ukraine. That's an example. We have global recession. That's another. So we give all these variables X, Y, Z, and so forth. And these are the ones that are supposed to inform and give us all the assumptions about a problem. It is important to remember that, because this model is our internal frame of reference whenever we are coming up with a strategy to mitigate the problem. And that means that the strategy can mean increase something on this side, and we hope to see a decrease on this side. Now, let me give an example. Cases of domestic violence have been rising, with people dying right, left, center, and every other person thinks that the solution, is to incarcerate and send these perpetrators to prison. Now, that is correct in one way, but when you think about a systemic thinking of solution generation or strategy generation, we say, if we increase the number of people we are sending to prison on this end, then by the same assumption, we should see a decrease in domestic violence cases. But if you ask yourself, is this something that is actually happening? Is there a correlation in what we're talking about? We send more to prison, the domestic cases drop. That is not the case. Now, anytime you find a mismatch between the strategy that you are using and the results that you are actually getting, it means that your model of that problem is wrong. The assumptions that you have about that problem are wrong, and every frame of reference that you have emanating from the model again will misinform the strategy that you will have. Let me even give an example as I conclude on this. We say it is not true that if we increase our national expenditure in terms of security, budget, and so forth, that translates to an increase in national security. You can spend trillions and trillions of money on this end, but you are nonetheless safer, which means again that the mediating or intervening issue or the mediating model is wrong. Now, let's look at a way to construct a model with the correct assumptions, and I'll give several things before I start on that. The other thing that you need to note is we have what you call expected effects from a strategy, then we have what we call unexpected effects. Now, this means that we put in a certain strategy over here into our ecosystem, and we get what we expect. We are arresting the chang'aa brewers and so forth, so we expect a reduction in the supply of the liquor. That's one way to look at it. But there can be unexpected ripple effects of a strategy, for example. Now, if we were to look at the issue of fighting any banned substance, we're talking about any substance of indulgence, as it were. There are two things, or there's two sides to that coin. There is the demand side and there is the supply side. And we say, as long as there is demand for a product, there will always be a supplier willing to supply that product. Now, if we say that Gashagua's assumption of fighting the supply would work, then it would mean that if he removed this aspect of supply, then the people who demand that alcohol will cease to exist, but or cease not to use the substance. But that is not the case. People will always find novel ways of fulfilling their urges. Now, I'll give three countries that have used various strategies. The first country is USA, the second is Philippines, and the third one is Portugal. Now, USA seems to be more concerned about the supply of banned substances. And let's give the example of cocaine and heroin to be specific. Therefore, what do? They go to Colombia and they go to Mexico and they tell the farmers, if you're willing to stop planting coca, we are going to pay you this amount of money for the same tranche of land. You're incentivizing the farmers to diversify from coca to something else with the hope that the drop of coca would drop the supply overall into your market. That's one way. The other way is attack the main cartels and break them into smaller bits. This means go after Pablo Escobar and go after El Chapo. But the question that we need to ask ourselves is this. After we have gone after Pablo and after we've incarcerated El Chapo or killed another cartel leader, yes, it is correct that this cartel will break into a smaller cartel, but the reality is that the supply quantity will remain the same because this supply is driven by the demand, the person that wants the product. So if we have 10 users that want 10 kilos of this product, regardless of whether the cartel are smaller cartels that are many, from 5 to 10 or 20, all these cartels are working to make sure that these 10 users are supplied with our product. So it doesn't change because we have a demand for that product. Now, Philippines says, I look at USA's fight on drugs and heroin and cocaine and all that stuff, and I think it is failing. And this is through their president, Duterte. He hypothesized that the issue is not a supply issue alone, but an issue of supply and demand. And to some degree, his model seems to have been correct because he says, as long as there is a drug user, there will be a drug pusher. And therefore, he promised in his campaign, I will kill every drug pusher and I will kill every drug user. Now, when he was finally voted into the Philippines government, people asked him, were you serious about killing them? And he said, yes, he was. But what he did not anticipate is how deep the drug problem goes, because any person that was suspected to be a drug user was killed in mysterious circumstances, and there was a humanitarian crisis with most people saying this constitutes extrajudicial killings, and Philip Duterte is guilty of humanitarian crimes. And this was so bad in the sense that the media couldn't keep up with the number of people who are getting killed every day, being the drug users and being the drug suppliers. And the whole campaign showed something that is very, very unique when it comes to drug usage. It showed that each and every person, each and every one of us is touched one way or another by a person who's peddling drugs or a person who's using drugs. Therefore, if we were to kill a drug user, too many families will be touched by this. If we were to kill a drug pusher, too many families, all of us will be crying because at one level or at one point or another, we know a friend, we know a cousin, we know a relative, we know a father, a mother, and so forth. It touches each and every person. But when we look at model B and model A, the most prominent one and the one that seems to give the best promise is the most controversial one, and this comes from Portugal. And we say that the act of decriminalizing was step one, but two, followed by creating a world-class rehabilitation center. And I believe the assumptions at the base of their model are correct in the sense that if you are a drug user, to some degree, you must get tired of your addiction. You must see the anarchy it is creating in your relationships, your ability to be a productive citizen, and on and on. And you say, I really do need help. But the problem is, rehabilitation is a very expensive affair. But if the government is going to create a world-class rehabilitation center, it means once I get tired of all these drugs, then I'll just walk into the rehab and take or give myself another shot at being clean or staying clean. Now, this act of decriminalizing combined by rehabilitation is what has made Portugal a world standard when it comes to fighting banned substances. They are saying at the core of their model, you cannot stop people who want to take the drug, and you cannot stop the people who are supplying the drug. While we will do everything to make sure that this does not happen, this is not the correct way to go about it. You don't attack the demand, you don't attack the supply. We do not have a case study that shows it works. If anything, create a good rehabilitation center, and that should be the forefront of everything that you are doing. Now, in this example, therefore, I'm trying to elucidate the fact that the model of the problem is what is informing the strategy across the various states, USA, Philippines, and Portugal. Now, we come to Kenya, and we have the problem of illicit alcohol, and this has been an ongoing problem. It has been there in Ruto's government, it has been there in Uhuru's government, it was there during Moi's era, and it has always been there, and I believe nothing will change about it, sadly. Not to be pessimistic, but this is why I say what I am saying. Behind or at the back of the vice president's mind, Gashagwa, is the fact that we have illicit alcohol being sold, and it is creating what we call societal decay. Now, I have several notions here. Now, if we were to look at the illicit alcohol, can we be able to benchmark another country that shows what this is all about, and could it be that we are getting it wrong? And this is what I mean. Back to the country that we were speaking about, USA. Now, USA has the various income demographics represented. You have the upper, you have the middle, then you have the lower income demographic, like any state. Now, the thing is, what we are basically calling chang'aa in Kenya is called moonshine in America, and it's perfectly legal. Now, let me try carefully here before it is misunderstood as to what I'm trying to say. The idea that USA has is any person that wants to make rum, which is a form of this product over here, can do so by fermenting their distillate, and then buying equipment on Amazon or making one for yourself, and distilling the ferment or the fermented broth, and making alcohol from it or making ethanol from it. Now, this is a widely accepted idea, and it is a perfectly legal idea. Now, that means that any person who wants to make their own alcohol, as long as they're in the United States, it's allowed. Of course, there are some bit of regulations that you need to adhere to, but if you wish to do it, you would be able to do it without fighting the ecosystem, as it were. Then the question becomes, why is it in USA there is no societal decay as a result of the liquor, but when you come to Kenya there is societal decay? Now, it could possibly be because of the demographic that is taking this alcohol. But without digressing into many things, I say this. While this is legal in USA, does it mean we legalize it in Kenya? And what is the likely effect if we were to go down that road? Since it seems I am saying this Portugal route should be the correct route to go. Now, that's one thing. The second thing is, as the Vice President Gachagua is fighting it, the supply, he's fighting the supply using the arm of law, good, and the support of the Constitution. And his concern is that the more we have this moonshine, or what we call chang'aa, being made, the more our society decays and the more our young people waste away. That is his model. But is he asking himself, how are these people getting there? That's one. Because if he's able to see how these people are getting there, he would have a more holistic model that informs the strategy. And I feel he did not get the model right. He does not know what exactly defines the problem, and his frame of reference is wrong, and he will fail like every other person who has tried to solve that problem. But in my reading, I discovered that EABL had done some work, and they came up with a very good model, and this is discussed through a Harvard Business School case study under EABL, and this is when they were launching Senator. And allow me to discuss this. EABL realized that several things are happening. There are precursors to the problem, and the first precursor is, first, anytime inflation goes up or tax goes up, the disposable income that people have goes down, but their drinking habits remain constant, which causes the demand for illicit liquor to go up. Now, this is where we get our health crisis and the resultant societal issues. In my own opinion, this is the most simplistic and accurate model, which says that to some degree, as long as we are in a boom state, or as long as we are okay financially and our inflation numbers are not as high, the disposable incomes will be good, which allows people to drink alcohol that is legislated, and there will be no demand for illicit liquor. But the minute inflation goes up or tax goes up, for example in 2008, and when we had the post-election violence around the same period, the money that the lower income demographic has, and not this, the lower income demographic has, goes down. Their disposable income goes down. And when their disposable income goes down, their drinking habits will always remain constant. They can look for avenues to save money when it comes to food, when it comes to other expenditures, but something that sticks clear is that their drinking habits will remain constant. They will not try to drink less because they don't have the money. Now, this is now what creates the demand for the illicit liquor and the resulting people dying and others going blind, and having young people wasting away in our streets. Therefore, EABL said, we have a loophole. This is number two. We have a loophole. And the loophole here is the government does not tax non-malted lager beer. And through this, they introduced Citizen and Senator then, before the Senator Special. And this was meant to take advantage of the fact that there was no tax and target a good number of these population, the low income population, because when the tax is high, the cost of the liquor goes up. And don't forget, most of the tax imposed on alcohol is what we call the sin tax. It is not a tax per se with the aim of raising revenue, but reducing the vice, as it were. And this is true when it comes to cigarettes, alcohol, and other substances. So if there is a loophole for a non-malted, they'll create a product, and which they did. But the problem was they sold this product using the old route to market. And by this I mean it is the same bars and clubs that are selling this Citizen and this Senator. And I want to draw for you a scenario so that you understand why the government did what it did. Assume you walk in a bar with 1,000 shillings in your pocket with the hope of having a good time. Tusker, which is EABL's main drink, and Pilsner is the other cash cow for EABL, goes for 200 shillings, for example. That means that you, as a drinker or a reveler, you can only take 5. Now the question is, these 5 of course are taxed by the government, and the government will have the revenue, but it is not enough for your conventional drinker, as it were, making an assumption here nonetheless. Enter the same bar where Tusker and Pilsner is being sold, and you find that there is Citizen going for 100 or Senator going for the same 100. Now it means again that I can have the same lager, but this time I will take 10 beers. Now this is the perfect arrangement for me, because if I enter that bar, Tusker, even though it was my beer, and Pilsner, even though it was my beer, is no longer a preference, because I am an income sensitive or price sensitive demographic. Therefore, I'll take the 10 beers for the 100 shillings. Now, this event here is what we call revenue cannibalization. Revenue cannibalization. And it is a scenario where you sell a cheaper product that eats into the revenue of your cash cow. Now, this cannibalization, to some degree, it was okay to EABL because their Tusker is making money, and also their Citizen and their Senator is still making money. But there's a person who is losing here. People are taking less Tuskers and less Pilsners, which we are collecting tax revenue, but when it comes to the Citizen and Senator, there is no tax revenue, and this is what is happening. Therefore, the government decided to reintroduce tax for these products, because the cannibalization was eating away on government revenue. Now, when that happens, it means that we are back to square one. This cycle that we are talking about here: inflation, tax, disposable income goes down, drinking habits remain constant, demand for illicit liquor goes up, a health crisis ensues. And so EABL had to sit down and think of a solution. How can we come up with a solution that solves this problem once and for all? And I like the fact that they thought of it, because if the government was very intent about it, the right partner to solve the problem is EABL, because this is what EABL did. And we are talking about Senator Special. They said, we need to come up with a beer or come up with a product, and this product needs to cater for this demographic, for this price sensitive demographic. So they decided we will do four things. The first thing is we will need to build a team. Now, in the old system, it was the old value-based value chain processes that were coming up with the citizen and the senator. But let's build a team, and this team will include a research team that will go to the shanties, busaa dens and chang'aa dens, and collect as much information as they can. The second thing is we need a tech team to tell us what color of alcohol would be appealing, not pink, definitely. Then we need a sales team to tell us which is the best route to market, because the minute we did this, we went through our old bars and clubs and distribution channels, there was a lot of cannibalization. So we need the sales team to decide what is the best route to market in this case. Then we need a creative agency to come up with the right messaging for this product. Okay, now you go to B. We need to determine what's the right price for this product. And you are competing with chang'aa dens and busaa dens and all those other illicit liquor dens. And when you go there, a mug or a keg or a big cup of the content goes for about 15 shillings to about 20 shillings. Therefore, if you want any part of that market share, you need to price it around the same place. And EABL was right to say that the price of the product must be 20, and we work backwards. We look at all our value chain processes, we look at all the processes involved in making the product, and make sure that that product gets to the customer at a retail of 20. That's the only way we get this, and they did. So they go ahead to point C. What kind of product prototypes should we have? And EABL had several options. The first one was spirits. The second one were ready to drink mixes. The third one was traditional beer, Moratina and what have you. And the last one were lagers. And I want you to see several things. While I may not have all the data that EABL used, if you're going to sell a spirit for 20 shilling, how will that impact your overall brand as EABL? That's what you need to ask yourself. If you're going to sell a ready-to-drink mix for 15 shillings, how does that impact the brand, and how is it absorbed by the customer that you are targeting? Because number one, they are drinking in chang'aa dens, and ready-to-drink mixes is not a thing for them. Just tearing on the sachets and drinking them is not enough. It's a socialization event. Then you go to the traditional beer. We need a lot of sorghum to make the traditional beer, busaa or moratina. It's a lot of beer, and the current market supply of sorghum would not be able to meet it. So they opted against the spirits, opted against the ready-to-drink mixes, opted against the traditional beer, and they decided to go the lager way. The last thing they needed to focus on was the distribution strategy. And under the distribution, they needed to determine the packaging of the product. What would be the product name? And they had two options. One was Challenger, and the other was Senator Special, and they opted for Senator Special. Are we going to use bulk packaging, like the water points where we have pure fresh and so forth, or are we going to use kegs? And they decided that this will not work. Senator Special is the name. Packaging, we shall use kegs. But there was a problem. The target market that you are looking to enter into is a price sensitive market, and it's basically a poor population. To have a keg, you need to make sure that you have an electrical pump, But the reality is that most of these places do not or did not have access to electricity, and therefore the problem of cost comes in. And don't forget, this is what we are trying to work with as much as possible. So Mutahi, who was working on the project, accidentally went on Amazon and found a camping manual pump, and this was the eureka moment, like we can use manual pumps and we'll still be able to keep the cost low and our target price will still be within range. But herein comes the kicker. Even after building the right team, collecting the right information, even after determining the right prototype, even after coming up with the right distribution strategy and settling on the manual pumps, even after all this, the price missed the 20 shillings mark, which means again we will not be able to target this market over here. And the reason was that the taxes that were introduced by the government to offset the cannibalization, and so they decided that there is nothing else we can do within our value chain to optimize and reduce the cost of production, but we can engage the government through lobbying so that they can be able to consider removing the taxes. Now, this was during Kibaki's era, and Kibaki was not about the corporate donations. It didn't sit well with his administration. What he was, however, very keen on was any company or any brand willing to solve societal problems. And this product was meant to solve one of the thorny issues that has been an issue for Kenya for decades. And I repeated myself, 444. Anyway, I digress. So they convinced the Kibaki administration we are trying to solve this social problem, and I believe removing the tax will be able to help us. And the government did agree, and the tax was removed. There are about 40 pilots of this project in Kibera, and there are lessons, of course, where they learned they cannot use trucks because of accessibility. You need wheelbarrows. There are very many lessons along the way. But if there is any key takeaway from this whole project, is that it became a very, very huge success because one, the person or the entity that was trying to solve the problem got this right. They were able to define all the parameters of the problem and how exactly to solve it. So if the government wanted to solve the illicit issue, there are two ways to go about it. One, have cheap liquor for these people, or two, reduce the inflation or reduce the number of taxes that we are having. Now, which is the easiest to do? In systems thinking, we say inflation is not an easy thing to control, especially when it's runaway inflation. Taxation, yes, there might be goodwill, but we always move towards more taxation, not less taxation. Therefore, to the government today and Ruto's administration, I still believe that this is the ultimate solution. Coming up with a new product that targets this demographic. And I say this because I feel Senator Special failed, because the minute it was introduced through their various concessions and the many things they did to make sure that they regularize or legitimize the chang'aa dens and the busa dens and so forth by getting licenses from the PC administration and so forth, they did the right thing, but they didn't know there was a market beneath the market they were targeting. And this is what I mean. Our student population, again, is an educated population that would not go the chang'aa way, but enjoys and is the huge consumer of this product, Senator Special. Now that is the market that the EABL had not seen, and that market became the main prevalent user of the product. A population that is not comfortable with the connotation chang'aa has, but also they're okay with the lager that is Senator Special and their keg format and whatever arrangement or infrastructure was set therein. Therefore, the dens that were the initial plan, the Busa dens and the chang'aa dens and all those, that's not where the product is going, and that's the reality on the ground. Therefore, I'm of the opinion, through the vice president sitting down with EABL and even giving them tax incentives to create a product and a route to market that will absorb at least 70% of this population. Now, if we can be able to get it from that angle, then the problem will be solved within a very short time. But we cannot say that we will fight it from a supply end and win. Our key partner in this fight is the brewer, EABL. So that's it. I hope you're able to take a few key things from this discussion. And yeah, see you next time. Thank you.